Morning.
Hi, Sunita. How are you? Good to see
Good.
you.
Good to see you too. How are you?
Good, good, good. So you are free from your other responsibilities?
I sneaked out.
Oh, good.
I'm
So you
hoping
got
nobody. I'm sure nobody's noticed that I've left.
you got glasses on. Have you
Yeah,
started wearing glasses? Yeah.
I'm getting old, Puneet. I'm getting old. So when I have to read something or look at, I'm okay looking at the screen, but if I need to write anything, I'm going to have to wear my glasses.
No, otherwise, there's no change in you. But like these specs, the glasses, I saw it for the first time.
Oh no,
So,
no, I'm older and wiser.
You've
How are you?
always been
How are you?
right. ये दरवाजा बंद है. You remember Rashmi?
I do indeed. She looked after me a lot.
Yeah. So
Yes, I do.
she's doing wonderful work on training with us, and
I know.
she's really provides good
When you
modules.
was
Yeah.
when you was in America,
Yeah. Yeah.
Rashmi was looking after me when I came to the academy. She
Okay.
was part of when I did the workshop with the women officers. Can you remember, Rashmi? It was good, wasn't
Yes,
it?
ma'am. I remember.
We had a lot of fun.
Yes, ma'am.
So, is it hot there? What's the
Yeah,
weather
it's
like?
quite hot. In fact, it's very hot. Suddenly, it has become like it is around 38, 40 degrees now.
Oh wow.
Getting very hot. Yeah. प्रिंट आउट नहीं है आज के पोस्टर पे.
आज के पोस्टर प्रिंट निकाल.
So, besides Professor Bajpai also seems to be there. Good afternoon, sir. I tried calling Craig, but right now I think he could not respond. So after this talk, I'll talk to him. Yeah.
Yeah, he was. I've just spoken to him. He was in the same meeting that I was in. So yeah, he
Okay.
said to pass on his regards. Yeah, yeah. He's really keen to speak to you, and I said to him that I would arrange for the three of us to have a meeting too.
Yeah, that will be better. So we'll catch up on that issue, and so after this, I'll talk to you. So today we like Aarti, can you call Sarika if she can? Acha, Sarika is also going to join. Sarika was so happy to know that you are also there on the panel, and
Because we talk a lot.
yeah, yes. So we are now coming to an end to our this, DSP program, the Deputy Superintendent of Police, who are now going to pass out. So we have a gala parade uh, when they end their tenure in the training center. So that's it.
Wonderful.
So Ava ma'am has joined us. Good afternoon, ma'am. Good afternoon, sir. Vajpayee sir.
Good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon, everybody.
Yeah, good
Nice to be
afternoon.
part of these discussions, sir.
Good, ma'am. Good to have you.
Uh, Hello, good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon, sir.
Hello,
Nice
sir.
to see you.
Welcome.
It's good morning from here. Professor Bajpai, my long-time
Hello,
friend.
Suni, how are you? Great to
I
see
was-
you.
You too. I was so delighted to be part of a panel with you. This is exciting.
Wonderful. Actually, I came, one of the attractions was that you are joining today, so I thought this is a great opportunity for me to see you.
Yes, same. I thought exactly the same. How are you keeping?
I'm fine, actually. Going well and everything is fine. What about you in Sheffield? Everything is fine?
Yeah, I mean, we're still in lockdown.
Yes.
You know, the situation here is really quite bad. It's getting better, but children have just gone back to school this week. But you know, the university, everything is virtual. We're doing everything online. Which I'm sure. Are you doing online classes as well?
Yeah, online classes, but we are pretty liberated now.
Yeah,
Things are improving, so things are coming slowly, of course, back to the normal. And of course, classes are not taking place. Small meetings, small discussion groups, wherever possible, we are trying to organize. That is happening.
and
But,
how is everybody at NLU?
yeah, NLU, everybody is fine. The faculty members have come back, and they are now picking up their things. And of course, but it was challenging, definitely, for all of us.
Absolutely.
But
Yeah.
Great. Yes. So thanks to actually Vineet today again, he has brought us together.
Absolutely.
Sir, you brought us all together. So
You did.
all the credit goes to you, sir.
Okay.
You did. When people say to me, how did you get to know about MP Police? I always say, well, there was this very wonderful professor at the National Law University that we met who made this introduction, and it just flowed from there.
Very right.
So we are
Oh,
very
it's
grateful to you.
correct. So it was great to be coming into contact with all of you, and we always remember our contact and our meetings and everything. But I'm happy that you are doing so well with MP Police on and on. And Vineet is, of course, the leader. He has grown to be a great leader now.
He's
and
fantastic.
not political leader, but academic leader. And
he's changing the minds and hearts of those that need changing.
yeah, he's impacting everybody a lot.
Absolutely.
Back home here. Yes, yes.
Inspiration has always been on your side, sir. You guys have been inspiring, and Anuradha ma'am has been inspiring a lot to go ahead with these things. And
Yes.
somehow the right click happened with you all, and that's why that is the strength. Otherwise, you could not achieve anything. So we have Avanti also joining us now, and Satya and Mamta. Mamta, you said you can't see anything. Can you see now, Mamta?
Before you say
Yes.
anything, I wish to say hello to all the guests who are on the panel at the moment.
Yeah, there are two guests. Like Sarika has yet to join. I don't know.
Yes,
I'll just ring her up.
I'm saying hello to you, to the guest to your left.
Yes, to my
Rashmi.
Rashmi, yes. Because she was not speaking anything, so I thought, let me put her on voice. She's there. Great. Again, Rashmi is another person who is, always a great contact and helping everyone, all of us, in connecting people. Great.
So Rashmi has been a constant anchor in most of the endeavors, and she's kept this whole approach very robustly on the pedestal of training. This is a approach of victim-centered policing. Sarika has joined now. Sarika, welcome. Can you hear us? You are our guest speaker today. Sarika?
Yes, I can hear you. Namaste,
Okay.
everyone. I'm just trying to upload my presentation, so give me one moment, please.
Yes. So I'll introduce, we can see Avanti Durani here. Avanti is our partner through IDFC Institute. Avanti, you can say hi so that they can identify you. We have Sunita and Professor Bajpai. Sunita Tur is from Sheffield Hallam University, Helena Kennedy Center for Justice for Women. And Professor Bajpai, of course, you know. And now we also have our partner institution, IDFC Institutes, Neha Sinha with us. So Neha, these are our esteemed colleagues.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Look forward to the discussion today.
We'll just wait for another 2 minutes. Let Sarika upload her presentation, and we are waiting for some other guests to join in.
Sunita, Mamta here. Good afternoon. It's lovely to see you. I'm sorry, my network is bad, so I can't put on my video, but lovely to see you.
You too, well, lovely to hear you, Mapta. We must catch up.
Sure, let's do that. How long are you here?
I'm just, I know I'm in the UK, but I'm,
Oh, yeah.
I'm not in India, but yeah, I was going to say, let's catch up virtually at some point.
Let's do that. I will connect with you.
Oh, that would be wonderful.
Sunita, she had been working on the Gulmohar project in Vidisha. Rajni, you can say hi to everyone.
Hello everyone, I am Inspector Rajni Tiwari. I worked at Gulmohar, Vidisha, as an in charge.
Pinky.
Priti, Abha is also about to join.
She has already joined. She was the third one to join today.
Oh, great, great.
Abha ma'am, can we have a glimpse of you?
Sure. Hello, sir.
Yeah.
Hello,
So
everybody.
Abaji, you cannot hide yourself. You are so prominent.
Here's my glimpse.
Yes,
So it's better to
great.
be. I'm overshadowed by all
The
the
sun.
presence over here.
Great,
Thank you so
great.
much for having me as a part of this. It's one thing that I really, really enjoy doing, associating with all of you.
Ma'am, there is a lot of sun behind you, so we could not see you. We could see your window. Ava ma'am has been a constant source of strength for us in all our victim justice related work, and so most welcome.
Actually, there is not so much sun today in Delhi. I don't know from where Abha Joshi is getting this entire sunlight. Directly going to her flat or apartment.
From the present company, obviously from the present
Yeah,
company.
Avaji, actually, Delhi is cloudy since last night, and there was a showers also, of course. But it's still very, not that bright. But of course, you are having great sunshine. Great, wonderful.
Is it okay with you? Otherwise, you just send the presentation to us. We'll upload it from here. So there's not an issue. Sarika ji?
Yes, I actually have already sent it.
Okay.
But I think once it does a share. Application नहीं share कर रहे हैं।
So, Sarika ji, my office is getting in touch with your people, and
Yes.
Okay, you have it. Okay.
Are you able to see my screen?
Yes, we can see. We can see.
Right. Okay.
Okay. It looks very exciting to watch it, but
I am.
now you can, but now you can minimize it so that we can, So should we begin now? We have Anuradha ma'am here with us. Ma'am, should we begin now? We are just waiting for some more to. Yes, ma'am says yes, please. Okay, so we'll start today's discussion. This is the Jiva Justice, Inclusion and Victims Access virtual roundtable day uh, 3. Uh, on this day, we have a discussion on victim-centered law enforcement and experiments of one-stop crisis centers. This is the theme for today. We have our panelists on board. Professor G.S. Bajpai from National Law University, Delhi, who has been a constant support and a mentor for our research initiatives, our training initiatives, and has been a great source of strength in most of our endeavors. Welcome, Professor Bajpai. We have Professor Sunita Toor from Sheffield Hallam University, UK, joining us from Sheffield. You're most welcome, Madam Toor. She has been a constant support as well, and has we have entered an MOU with them and have been partnering with many approaches on victim justice. So most welcome, ma'am, for today's session. We also have our esteemed partner organization Action Aid India, represented through our very close associate, Madam Sarika Sinha. Most welcome, ma'am. She has been a resource person, a constant support in most of our endeavors, particularly with our endeavor on victim justice, one-stop crisis centers, and also in our gender justice-based work, gender mainstreaming training, and other relevant and associated works. So this is our panel today. The theme of today's discussion is victim-centered law enforcement and experiments of one-stop crisis centers. This goes with the theme of justice, inclusion, and victim access. Uh, the main context in which we have organized these roundtables, starting from the International Women's Day, is based on the concept of justice and inclusion, uh, and how accessibility is an issue in terms of justice and inclusion, and how victimization, victim justice, and victim assistance is the ultimate test of all what we do. With that context in mind, I'll first now invite Professor Bajpai for his contribution on today's roundtable. The structure of the roundtable goes this way. I'll be inviting our three panelists to speak for around 10 minutes each on the context of their work, their experience, and then we'll open the house for discussion. We have very eminent participants from different jurisdictions who are dealing with various aspects of victim justice and inclusion, governance, and law enforcement, and their contribution to today's roundtable and policy-based discussion would be very valuable. With that aim in mind, we start the discussion today. Firstly, with Professor Bajpai on board. Sir, you may start, sir.
Thank you, Viniti. So we have 10 minutes around. I have 10 minutes around to speak. Is it?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. So, which means that I need to touch upon certain ideas. Basically, since this discussion is centered around a project, Gulmohar, which the MP Police and specifically our friend Dr. Vineet Kapoor has launched, and I have been seeing its moving, its movement and its progress and achievements all through. I would today be speaking more on the ideas relating to the basic guidelines for organizing effective victim service programs, especially in the context of the functioning of police. Means whether, because this idea in itself is very unique, if the police organizations at police leadership at the district level in a country like India can think of organizing similar projects in order to contribute to the victim justice, the whole idea of victim justice. That is something so I'll be discussing this entire approach or entire notion in two parts. First is that it is high time that the leadership in police must understand that they have the capacity to become victim assistance service provider. Victim assistance provider, police, this is a new role for police. So if we look at the notion, rooted in the much celebrated handbook for justice to the victims of crime by the United Nations, they have conceived this idea that first point, it is important for the leadership in the police to understand the impact of victimization in order to promote the understanding of the need for assistance. Because unless we understand the impact and unless we understand the need for assistance to the victims of crime, probably the organization of such service program would be difficult. What I'm saying that this is also a high time that let us organize this entire module as a training program or as a capacity building program for the police to identify the extent to which they can organize themselves as service providers in case of multiple kinds of victimization, so that such things can happen. Obviously, we are talking about some impacts, because from impacts we go to the assistance, and from assistance we go to the organization of service. So my first point is any kind of offense would bring physical and financial impact. And lately the mapping of victim impact becomes very, very important, because law alone cannot probably quantify the impact. Impact is seen through the physical harm and the injuries suffered and other forms of consequences. And financial impact of crime is quite less documented, because victims may incur cost in several ways, sometimes repairing the property or installing security measures, accessing health service, participation in criminal justice system, other kinds of funeral, burial expenses, taking time off from the work, and so many things. Now, these losses are not very well calculated. It's more hidden and mysterious is the psychological and social cost. Now, if we want to mitigate the sufferings of the victims through any intervention, it is very important that the psychological and social cost must be gauged so that we can work out the requirement for the victims of crime. I'm not detailing, but now in this era, we know that PTSD in terms of psychological impact and post-traumatic stress and all these things are trauma, all these things are very well documented. Thus, apart from these three kinds of impact, there is another very important impact that we need to understand. And probably the service projects like Gulmohar or any other service project that can be organized would pay enough attention to this. And this impact is called secondary victimization from the criminal justice system and society. We know that the victim has to process or has to navigate through a variety of institutional arrangements within the legal system, within the police, and thereby they tend to experience a variety of negative experiences. Sometimes they are looked down upon, sometimes they are just sort of moved away, and in most of the time they are not given due consideration. Now, from this impact part, I am moving to the victim assistance program, which ideally a police district can organize or help at least in organizing in association with some activist organization or NGOs and other. Now, what is this core idea of victim assistance program? So three things are very important. One is the goal of victim assistance program is to assist victims in dealing with emotional trauma, participating in criminal justice process, and obtaining reparation and coping with problems associated with the victimization. If this is the goal, then there would be certain objectives. I'm saying how the victim assistance program can be organized. Then we need to lay down our objectives based on this larger goal. But the point will remain. The first thing is we need to assess the requirement and resources at the first level. So in that jurisdiction, what is the rate of victimization? What is the type of victimization? What is the assistance required? And what kind of advisory groups and the people who are available? So the first requirement in assessing the shortfall between needs and provisions of assistance is to establish the need by obtaining accurate data on the incidence and prevalence of victimization. So possible sources of data for the assistance include various police reports, community survey, survey of social institutions. We can get a lot of data, victim surveys. Idea is to create a data bank about the victims of crime so that an effective. But the steps in implementation, I'm little hurried through all this aspect. Second step is the implementation. We need to establish the service goals. And then we also need to develop our annual program. And third is securing official recognition. Anything that you organize, Gulmohar is working because it has been officially recognized. Then you need to look at the budgetary locations. Then adequate and appropriate office spaces. And training, hiring, and transportation, upgrading of office instrument, and developing a public relation policy. Because what Gulmohar has done, it has given us a hope that there can be a possibility of organizing victim assistance program. But what I'm saying, let us finally document certain protocols so that these protocols can be transferred to other police districts to be able to organize the similar program. So that's why I'm enumerating these details. Third is service delivery. Service delivery should be prepared in a way so that the victims who are the target group could effectively assisted. This would require again the mapping of the needs, mobilization of resources, and delivery of service. And finally, the outcome of the service delivery, because victim would require variety of information sometimes. And type of services have now become good part is if you see the handbook of victim justice, they have come down to around 10, 12 kinds of service. So first service that this kind of arrangements would look for is the crisis intervention. Second could be counseling. Third could be advocacy. Now advocacy, I keep talking that this is something we are organizing at National Law University Delhi, a victim advocacy, which would require legal and non-legal. Non-legal means community advocates, and legal means the court advocates. So advocacy is important. Fourth is support during investigation of crime. There is a lot of guidance which is required. So victim advocate is the concept that victim advocate doesn't mean the legal person. Victim advocate could be anyone who is ready to come forward to assist and mitigate the sufferings of the victim by way of promoting lives, by way of putting the victim into the touch with the service providing agency and similar things. Support during criminal prosecution, then support after case disposition, then training for professionals and allied personnel on victim issues, violence prevention and preventive services, and public education on victim issues. So any effective victim advocacy program will include these 7 or 8 kinds of and what could be the guidelines for developing multidisciplinary approaches? That is something I will not deal with here because I know. But what I can say very briefly, that having identified the type of services capable are we capable to provide, we need to then look for which is the service which is needed. So like for instance, I mentioned crisis intervention. Crisis intervention would include the emotional support, means the counseling, direct assistance means at the time of emergency or referral, information, whenever information is needed, immediate needs are concerning anything relating to the victim's rights and other things. Besides emotional support, the counseling would also include a variety of counseling, active counseling, counseling by peers, counseling by professional. But I think the support during investigation and prosecution is also something very important. I don't have much time to deal with that, but what I can say with confidence that the Indian legal regime is moving forward very effectively to include, to imbibe the notion of victim justice quite effectively through various judgments of the Supreme Court. And some of these things, this is the high time that this particular experiment that we have carried out in Gulmohar must be magnified. This is very important. This should not be limited to one place. But what I would say, Dr. Vineet, that what you have done is a part of a very important protocol provided in the Handbook of Victim Justice, Handbook of Justice for Victims of Crime. And they are talking about developing a framework for organizing victim support programs at different levels. So next level of our action should be to conceive and to prepare a draft or a blueprint for similar program, and these should be properly advocated upon so that they can be multiplied, because victim justice and victim assistance continues to be a very important need in the society. And all the police districts at the moment, I can very confidently say many police districts or many police organizations in different states are not in a position to organize similar things because they lack the knowledge base, skill base, and resource base. Now, how we can augment some of these requirements on the part of those who are really keen to organize victim support services. So these are some of the thoughts that I wanted to share, but I would be very happy to address any of the things which I have mentioned in my address. But one thing I would very emphasize very significantly in the recent past, like I have taken up victim advocacy. So I have approached the High Court in Delhi and I said, look, we are doing some work which can be of your interest and I can contribute. They have immediately appointed me as a amicus curiae in 3 cases. And as Dr. Vineet will know, that I have made the entire program of victim impact report in India. And I'm very happy to say that Delhi government has accepted that report. They have made it part of the judgment. Therefore, the victim impact report submission has become a mandatory requirement for all the police officers in all the cases. And this, I have developed a pro forma to assess. So initially, they were of the view that only the physical aspects or pecuniary aspect would be included. But I emphasize the social cost and emotional cost of victimization is something which we should include. I'm happy to say that this has become a reality. So this kind of victim advocacy can be very, very impactful in a country like India. And I would be very happy to collaborate and to discuss this idea at length with any of you. Thank you for your attention and patient hearing.
Thank you so much, sir. And thanks a lot, sir. We are so blessed to have you on the panel today. You have really been instrumental in mainstreaming such important changes in the conception of victim justice and institutionalizing certain norms in the through your advice to the court, through your advice to the different policy making institutions, and the 7 principles which you mentioned about victim justice are indeed very, very impactful, very relevant to the policing work which we do, and to all other agencies which are involved in the victim assistance in one way or the other. So thank you, sir, so much for this. I know there would be a lot of questions for you and a lot of queries and need to understand the things in detail. We look forward to have a detailed discussion on this with a special session of yours on this issue. Now we'll move to the questions at the end. Now we'll move to our second panelist. Before that, I would welcome our special DG Aruna Mohan Rao ma'am, who has joined us, and thank you ma'am for joining us. Today is ma'am's birthday, so we take the opportunity to wish her happy birthday on this forum as well. So thank you for joining her. Now I'll request our second panelist, Sunita Toor, Professor Sunita Toor from Sheffield University. Sunita, we would like to know about your experience of victim justice solutions through the work of different police jurisdictions in the UK with whom you are working very closely. You are advising them. You are a consultant also. Your university is making a lot of dent in mainstreaming victim justice through capacity building of police officers, and you have extended that approach in India through your training programs in different states, within which Madhya Pradesh also is, Madhya Pradesh Police is also a partner. So thank you very much for joining. And now we'd like to know more about your work on victim justice centers and solutions. Over
Thank
to
you.
you.
Thank you so much, Vinny. I'm really delighted to be part of this panel, particularly because some of my very favourite people in India are here, and people that I've learned a lot from. So a lot of my work here in the UK and that I've been doing for over 20 years was really enhanced by my experience of coming to India. So I think there's been a really wonderful, fruitful duality of, you know, I've learnt so much. I know my wonderful sister that's here, Sarika, I've learnt so much from her about the perspective of victims and survivors, and it's really informed my sense of understanding about victimhood, which I think is really important. And Professor Bajpai was one of the people that introduced me to Madhya Pradesh Police, which led to all these wonderful interactions and engagements that we've seen now nearly 5 years on. So this is wonderful that these conversations are developing and happening, and the work that we're doing together is not only having an impact in India, but also shaping our thinking here in the UK as well. I just wanted to sort of reflect and not cover things that Professor Bajpai has covered. And I also know Sarika will be focusing much more on victims and the work that she has done, which has been incredible around supporting victims. I wanted to come back to something that I think is really important to think about, which is sometimes I feel with police officers that I've worked with in the UK and also in India, is a reminder about the role of the police. Because sometimes in the day-to-day activity of police work, one can forget or just put that to the back of their mind, or if they've been in service for 30 years, you know, the actual role of the police for me is so intrinsic to how we then develop our concepts and our approaches to victims. Because the role of the police for me is that you maintain and you advance justice. And through that, you're promoting and advancing human rights, or one would hope so. And I know Professor Bajpai and I had conversations about this right at the beginning, and this is where, you know, there was this real connection about sort of, you know, the underlying principles of what police work is about. Yes, it's about law and order, but within that, you know, the construct of justice, the construct of human rights is really important. And if you take that approach, it really is, it informs how we should think about victims and who victims are. Victims aren't necessarily somebody that comes into a police station to report a crime. Actually, surveys here in the UK demonstrate that the majority of victims don't go to the police in the first instance to report crime. They go to support services, they go to peer groups, they go to family, they go to community groups. So the police can be often some way far down the line. And I think when we're thinking about gender-based violence, what the data and the evidence shows us is that quite often, significantly so, those victims may not come forward ever. They may not come forward for many weeks, months, or even years, as we've seen with things such as the Me Too movement, but they are victims. So one of the things that I've been very passionate about, and I know with the work that I've certainly done with MP Please, is to think about victims as individuals that necessarily may not come to the police in terms of a complaint or registering or a complaint, which therefore means that the police really need to work with their communities in terms of prevention. And some of that work is about going to schools, it's about education programs, it's about engaging with community groups, about prevention of gender-based violence, which is the key area that I'm really focused on, and community policing, providing a vehicle for people to come forward and make and file a complaint if they so wish to. And I know a lot of the work that Sarika does is often with women and girls that actually their last resort is going to the police. What they need is safety, what they need is protection, what they often want is that violence to end. You know, so sometimes we have to remind ourselves, what are the priorities of the victim? Is the priority of the victim to go firstly to the police? The priority of the victim is safety and to stop whatever's happening to them. And I think that's something that is really important for us to bear in mind. And I know that Sarika will talk about that, and also talk about the the wonderful grassroots work that is happening to support victims, but also communities as well. I want to sort of emphasise the work that I've done here in the UK in terms of partnerships. I think partnership with communities is crucial to providing really effective, nuanced support services for victims. We can only provide services and support to victims if we know what their needs are. And we can only know what their needs are if we talk to them and find out what that is. So partnership is fundamental to a lot of the victim support services and the approaches that the police have developed here in the UK. We have a lot of one-stop crisis centres and charities and NGOs that work with victims of violence and survivors of violence, but they do that in very much a partnership role. And Vineet and Professor Bajpai, and I know Sarika knows about the Juniper Lodge, which has been one of the inspirations for developing Gullamore, which is a police run and a police funded service, but it has been done significantly in partnership with other NGOs and charities and organisations that focus on the needs of women and girls. And it's so that you're able to collect evidence, DNA that may be needed for a prosecution, and you do that in the early stages, but you're also providing psychological support, health, medical support, as well as maybe housing and safe housing as well. And that multi-agency approach is seen to be one of the things that's really transformed victimhood here in the UK. That said, I think it's really important to be honest about the situation here in the UK when it comes to victims, and certainly victims of sexual assault and gender-based violence. We are experiencing a decline in women coming forward and reporting. And there is a worry. If Millie, who runs Juniper Lodge, was here, she would say that there's a real concern that the police have, and South Yorkshire Police that I work with as well, will say that they're really concerned with the number of women that do not want to go through the criminal justice system. They do not want to officially report. We're seeing a decline of that here in the UK. That said, we're seeing a rise of referrals to those community services that support women. And for me, I think it shows that there's a lot of work still to be done here in the UK, and that work is being done about bridging the relationship and bridging the gap between the work that those community organisations do and the police does as well. So there seems to be somewhere where there is a resistance or an unwillingness for women to want to go through the criminal justice system. And that's because the process is very onerous on women. It's very emotionally labour intensive on women. It leads to increased PTSD. And we have to tackle those issues if we want to see more women and victims that could be girls as well go through the criminal justice process. And that's something that, you know, I think collectively there's lessons to be learned from India and the UK about how we could do that together. The other thing I think that is changing the landscape of supporting victims, and certainly the work of crisis centres, is COVID. Now, COVID has impacted every country in the world. You know, other people have seen less COVID cases, others have seen more. But what the UN Women is very clear on is that there has been a rise of the number of victims that have experienced gender-based violence. There's been a rise of child marriages. There's been a rise of forced marriages. There's been a rise of poverty that has led to increased abuses of girls and women in particular. There's been a rise here in the UK. We've seen about a 60% rise in domestic violence referrals to support services. And that raises a really urgent need for us to respond to those increasing cases and incidences of victims that are coming forward. But in a crisis such as COVID, where this can only be done remotely in a lot of instances, how do you support those victims that are perhaps living with their perpetrators? What can we do and share the knowledge of what we can do about providing support services for those victims? I was listening to Radio 4 this morning, and the landscape on pandemics is, you know, for the future is looking bleak. You know, COVID's one of what people are predicting as many you know, pandemics to come forward. And what I would urge police to think about, and police organisations and justice organisations and NGOs going forward to think about, if this is one of many pandemics that we may see over the next 2, 3, 4 decades, what can we do now to advance and develop the way that we support victims, so that in a world where there could be more lockdowns or more restrictions, what sorts of initiatives and good practice can we scale and share with other people and other states or other countries where we can support victims? Because I do think that there is a need to think about these things before we hit another crisis and we're reactive. So I think some thought into how we shape the future of victim support is really needed, because this is just one of many things that we will see. I think Gullimore has shown, you know, the ability of the police to spearhead a movement. And I'm really keen to see more of those one-stop crisis centres develop. And for me, the question is, how do you scale that and work in partnership with organisations, those grassroots organisations that are on the ground, that are led by feminists, that understand these issues much more pertinently, how you can develop centres in collaboration with those partners who can really help you advance that, but also help you in terms of prevention as well, because I think prevention is really key in terms of working with communities to stop the incident of violence before it even happens. And I think that is hugely important if we are ever going to see any sort of combating of gender-based violence. I think there's a lot of preventative grassroots community work that can really be done. And I think the police can really assist organisations and work with organisations to do that, so that you're removing that level of stigma and fear about a victim coming forward and going to the police. I appreciate my time's nearly up, so I'm just going to end on this one note. Dr. Bajpai mentioned, you know, sort of impact and evidence. The other thing that I really I look for in the news quite a lot, and I'm an avid news consumer of all forms, is that, March is Women's History Month. International Women's Day is about celebrating the successes and journeys that women have had and the achievements. And we know there's much more to do. But I think there is a point at which that, we have to also share the good practice and share the success that is happening as well. And I'm in awe, and I find it inspirational when I ever go to Gorvi, which Sarika helped set up, about the tremendous work that they do, because it fills me with hope that there is a roadmap and a route to combating gender-based violence that works. And for me, it's about profiling those stories, and that, because that is impact. And in the world where we see such a scale of gender-based violence, we need to have hope that there's avenues and routes to combating it, because there are so many events that I go to where people say, as I've said, there's a regression of people, of criminal justice prosecutions in this area, but women do come forward and women do get support and seek support. But I think we have to provide those women that come from those very marginalised, invisible communities, that there is an avenue to access justice and support, and there is an avenue for hope. And I'll leave on that message, because I think we could, and I'm happy to sort of elaborate and discuss that, but I didn't want to cover things that I knew that Sarika would cover, but I think it's probably a suitable link to handing over to the wonderful Sarika.
Thank you, Suni, for all your contribution and the spectrum of work which you do on gender-based violence, particularly in the UK, and also its relationship with your work in India. We have been blessed to be a part of a study tour organized through you to see the one-stop crisis center, Juniper Lodge in Leicester, and we got inspired to do a similar kind of work from an Indian context in India. And of course, the inspiration also came from Gauravi, of where Sarika has been doing very, very sustained work on victim justice and empowerment. Sunita has talked about the challenges which COVID has brought in the area of victim justice assistance, and the tremendous amount of access and the facilitation of access which is required in different areas of victimization, and so many other issues which we need to discuss deeper on, and we'll have our question hour for that. Now I will thank you very much, Suni, for your valuable contribution, and we'll get back to you once we finish off with the three presentations, discussions, and then we'll have an open house on that. Now I'll invite Sarika Sinha from ActionAid India to speak on victim justice solutions through their efforts in this area. Sarika, please.
Thank you, Vinitji, and thank you to the organizers for having organized this particular meeting. I want to take one moment to acknowledge and welcome Suni, Dr. Sunita Tur, who's here, and what a strong support she's been for us, and that's something that we've all known before I put the slide. So please don't take this as the first minute of my time. I'm going to put the presentation now. Can you see the presentation? Can you see the presentation?
No, we cannot see. I think, yeah, now I think it is loading. No, no.
Right. So I'm starting now. So you're not able to see the presentation still, right?
Yeah, we are not able to see it.
Just give me half a moment.
Yeah, try.
Are you able to see it now?
I think, yeah, now we can see. You can do the slideshow mode, but it's seen now. It's a it,
Right. Okay. So thank you and apologies. I've chosen to call this the brilliant disruptors because that's the last thing people would imagine the women who come to Gauravi to be. And I want to start from where Dr. Toor left, and thank you for leaving it where you did, because I think the COVID pandemic really it was a pandemic that did a vivid dissection of our society and actually showed us how flimsy we were. And in its own manner, I think it exposed the confinement that women were undergoing earlier, the curbing of their personal freedom, the fact that women use most of the public transport, and it had a very strong class and gendered character, and the two need to be seen in conjunction with each other. So it sort of legitimized women's unfreedom, and I'm very glad that you brought it up, because I think what we are going to talk about is very humbly our own experiences of how women survivors, and we choose not to call them victims, uh, rise up from the ashes, and some of them do, some of them don't. So we are a mixed bag, and I would be very happy to also talk about where we haven't really been able to do much. So Gorvi means brave heart, and this is just the premises that I thought I'll show you. So we are based out of the government hospital in Bhopal, the JP hospital, and I want to begin with talking about the context, and which is that we know that every third woman across the globe is a survivor of violence, and our own experiences say that in terms of sexual assault, the stigma is so high that if 10 women get raped, only five are able to come and complain. And it's not just the police that actually stops them from complaining; it's also our families and the society and a lot of other systems that need to be dealt with the same veracity. And we're just talking about the police right now, so which is one of the approaches that we have sort of picked up in Gauravi. And there is a global context of rise of nationalism and rise of fascism in a very different manner, and it certainly goes on to further curb a woman's freedom. So there's something, and then there is COVID pandemic. So I'm just showing you a picture that of a celebration that we had on 6th of this month, and uh, how do we create a center which has the subjecthood of women survivors, where the entire set of interventions are woven, keeping a woman's body in the center. And we all know that a woman's body is a very, very strongly political site. Wars are fought over a woman's body. So the other thing that we very clearly acknowledge is women are not a monolith, they are not a homogeneous class. And with us, we felt that the most precarious ones are the ones who come to us, people who cannot afford a lawyer, people whose voices are not really heard. And over a period of 6 months, when we were actually looking at NCR FIR, we found that there were about 125 women who, when they directly approached the police station, they were given an NCR. Sometimes not even that, just an application which they were asked to hand over, and many of them cannot read and write. But when they went with this manufactured legality that Gauravi has, of actually going with our referral form, uh, most of them were able to have an FIR. So the other understanding is also that precarity, poverty, and patriarchy, all of them go hand in hand and they go together. So our experience says that we ask a woman to come as she is, and we never judge them. So we've had incidences of consensual sex, and the woman feeling very, very exploited thereafter. And we also know that not every rape is physically very, very violent.
So our decision is to never stigmatize them any further from where they have been. And the other and the most important thing is that apart from the usual services, and I'll get into the usual services, I heard Professor Bajpai give some very, very good and interesting ideas around it. How do you enhance a woman's consciousness and her capabilities is another thing. So we do run a 24 into 7 toll-free hotline for women. And I also want to take a moment to tell you that, you know, out of the 12 member team that we have, 8 of them are now women who actually came to Gorvi as survivors of violence and have now started working with us full time. We do offer medical shelter, police, and outreach support. So when a woman calls us up and she's not able to call us back and we fear for her life, one of our team members actually goes and checks on her. And the picture on the right that you see, the last picture of a man in white shirt talking to a woman, is something that we do, which is called a moot court. So he's actually preparing her to how to give her testimony before the court, because lots of times we don't have access to these courts where these women go to. So about 20% of our cases that come to us are actually outside Bhopal. So we help the woman prepare her own testimony. And in cases of sexual assault, we actually ask her where to draw the line. So we've come across many incidences of lawyers laughing and, you know, further stigmatizing her by asking her the details of how she was raped. So she has to know where she's going to stop them. So what is it that we do which is extra? And I want to talk about agency, and I want to talk about autonomy, and I want to talk about a couple of extrinsic factors. So one is building her own capacity. And so if you look at that, what we do in terms of agency is uh, we do a lot of leadership discourse schools. And the picture that you see on the right has Medha Patkar as one of the trainers, which is not the usual trainer, which is how to inculcate a process of critical thinking in a woman. So, how to understand that what happened to her was not something that she had called for, how to stop blaming yourself. And for that, apart from feminism, there are other structures of dominance that she needs to understand. So there is a entire course of politicization that a woman goes through. The first picture that you see is of a particular bomb blast, and these were the students of this particular leadership school. And let me also tell you that about 40% of our leadership schools have participants as women survivors of Gauravi. The others are people who are activists, and sometimes they are also students and academicians. So it's also a site where it's not just the women from Gauravi who are sitting alone, and it's also our means of kind of sensitizing the others, the again, not an homogeneous category, but and the students, and kind of having this debate where you don't feel out of the society, which is something that most of the women start feeling when they come to us. The second thing is a lot of our emphasis is around building skills. So how do you stand on your own feet? So maybe you were sexually assaulted, or you faced domestic violence or molestation, and then you won the case. What happens thereafter? And we know that the stigma is very long term. So for children who have delivered in Gauravi, which happens almost every other month, we try to send them back to residential schools. But for people who are adults and, you know, have been thrown out of their homes, don't have their maternal home to go back to, don't have their the husband's home to go back to, and we know that women hardly have a house of their own. How do they stand on their own feet? And that's something that we are trying to do right now. And is training them around a whole gamut of issues. So in our first counseling is a lot on the violence that happens to us, but in the second counseling onwards, we start talking to her about the future. And we also organize very regular study circles. So sometimes they are physical, and of late, you know, since March last year, they have mostly been virtual, which again has a very strong class character, because not every woman can have access to these study circles. And it's to come up with just about anything, starting from gender to periods to menstruation, or the fact that you know that somebody in your neighborhood is getting beaten. How do you deal with this? So a lot of these activities require general mingling of people with others. And when I've spoken to women over a course of time and asked them what they feel it gives them, they've certainly come up with these three major things that I've kind of reworded it. The first one is the ability to question and confront. The second one is enhanced capabilities. So, it's not just a skill set and economic independence, but also a political thinking, which is very different of this normalized violence against women that most of us have accepted. And then they start collectivizing, which is something that I'll also talk to you about. The other thing is the notion of autonomy. So when they come, there's not just battered and bruised physically, it's also that they have lost their own self respect. So having been told that they are not unable to be good wives, good mothers, good cooks, and this is the way we leave our women. If we've had women from very very strong economic backgrounds coming in and being and telling us that my husband gives me just 100 rupees for my pocket money, and I always have a driver at my disposal so that he can keep a track of where I'm going. So that self-respect, the bodily integrity of saying no to a marital rape is something that we've constantly been talking to the women about. Economic resources, quite a few of our women have now started working on their own, and in fact two of them will probably get felicitated today. One is the first auto rickshaw driver, and the other one was the first case of surrogacy that we had in MP, and now she runs a restaurant, and you can order on Swiggy and other online sites. But apart from that, what it also gives them is a strong social network. So we know that most of the time we hardly have our own friends. Our friends are our husband's friends, or our in-laws people. So ability to make friends, and there is a development of a sisterhood that comes in. So this ability to help each other is something that comes in. And we've also had women helping out other men, and that we saw a lot during COVID. So in the bottom, you can see pictures of women actually selling their goods, women undergoing training. So quite a few of them have actually been able to stand on their own good feet. And as we speak today, we've had a stall in the Bhopal Haat, which is a very well-known, coveted place, and very respected as well. So these are some pictures of our relief distribution, which we did through women auto drivers. And what was amazing was that Bhopal, is a strong center of transgendered people, and these women were the first ones to reach out to the transformations and actually distribute relief amongst them. uh, I've just put in some of the pictures of our media gallery. So these women in the top left are the new auto rickshaw drivers. Unfortunately, all of them have lost their autos because none of them were able to pay the EMI. But it's something that we are trying to get somebody else to sponsor so that they get it back. And the center picture is the one of Bhopal Haat, where these women are actually selling their goods. So this kind of money obviously comes in handy, and justice. And the other extrinsic factor that I need to talk to you about, when you don't want to kind of have a notion of disempowerment, is when once they have started thinking and they have started critically analyzing and they have started asking questions, once they are able to earn some money, there is a lot of interaction amongst these women, and there is a lot of resistance, and there's a lot of collectivization. So they go around challenging a lot of institutions of dominance. So we've had women who have brought in their mother-in-law, and together they're kind of having an alliance in which they can negotiate some space within the family. Caste panchayats, we've seen women seriously challenging and doing that very very vociferously, challenging the very internal norms which are very accepted in our society. And so wherever there is power, there's resistance. There's a lot of resistance that and inspiration that I derive from these women. And so auto rickshaw drivers have now formed their own union. There's another domestic workers union, which I wasn't aware of, but which now has about 1,500 odd women in Bhopal. And if they're they're sexually exploited, or if they are blamed for any kind of threat, there is a group that is negotiating on behalf of these women. So there's a lot of collective strength that we see. And what I realized was, apart from a common minimum program, which I would say is a bit simplistic, there's also a huge understanding of the difference. So, whether I'm a Dalit or a tribal woman, let's see on what grounds can we come together. And what I really liked was how their understanding of leadership is how not to imitate the oppressor. So it's very, very democratic in a way that it incorporates a lot of dissent. So we've had huge number of public actions, rallies, sit-in protests, and there's this constant dialogue that keeps happening. And if these are some other pictures that I've brought for you. So they've now started going out into communities, and some of them, these survivors of violence, are actually fellows of ActionAid, but most of them are not. So you can see some pictures of our domestic worker unions, groups. Then they also perform street plays, which is something that they have learned in the leadership school, and they make their own plays now and perform these. And these are some of the pictures from media that I've shown. I think I've gone beyond my time. So thank you so much for listening to me, and I'd be very happy to answer any of the questions.
Thank you, Sarika ji. Thanks so much for your such an informative, value-packed, and highly impacting presentation on the solution aspect of victim justice and the way you are approaching it from a holistic perspective. I'm not new to what you have said just now because we have been benefited by the kind of hand-holding support you gave us in Gulmohar. And I remember once we had a victim and Rajni came up and she said that वो महिला बोलती मैं घर भी नहीं जाऊंगी और मैं अपने ओन पे रहूंगी पर उसके पास कुछ नहीं. And then you guided us कि नहीं आप you can talk to the local businesses and then you can get her some work. And we talked to the local businesses and we got some work for her and she could survive on her own and she started some work of her own. And then we had a series of people like survivors having their like starting something of their own. Atul Shahji is sitting here from Vidisha Gulmore Center, who was our support, and I remember you have helped us so much. So thank you so much. Your presentation had so many aspects to discuss, and I would not take much time now. I will now open the house for questions, observations, and invite our esteemed guests on the forum to discuss any issue with the panelists or with anyone among each other. We can have a discussion because it's a round table basically. So please, I'll invite now questions from our. Yeah, so the hand is raised by I think Rick. Rick, please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Vineet, and wonderful to hear Sunita talking from the British perspective. And again, quite fortunate in that I just wanted to come in from both Indian and British perspectives. This is a vast equation with many things, unfortunately, that need to be fixed inside it. And it's wonderful to see what's being done in Bhopal. I remember, Vinny, 20 years ago, we actually opened a victim centre in Bhopal when I was there. I can't remember the details of it, but I do remember opening it with a team. But it's superb to see how it's developed in 20 years. So well done. I just wanted to talk a little bit about the sort of the history of and the UK and the perspectives that may be useful from an India perspective. The victim-centered approach comes from work that was being done with children. It was called Children First, and it put children into the center of the equation, where approaches were supposed to be designed from a multidisciplinary approach that worked in a comprehensive way. I've just reviewed
for the Crime Commissioner in Humberside as part of the Ministry of Justice's review on victim support, the victim support codes of practice. And as somebody who initiated them in the UK some years ago, I was appalled, absolutely appalled to see how poor they really are. They're difficult to understand. There is no one person who is accountable or responsible inside the system for ensuring that victims get support. Am I right, Sunita? I mean, you've worked inside it. This needs to be fixed. It's desperately important that it is. There's a heavy reliance on the police to do that, but let's not forget. We look at the Indian perspective, and I remember, say, the interviews that police officers, police constables do, is very often patriarchal. And that can be done by a woman or a man, where you're talking down to the victim rather than talking and listening with the victim. The court system in the UK and in India is adversarial, so the victim very often feels that they're being punished again through the court system, even if it's a video interview done through closed circuit television systems. And I've seen this all over the world. You know, I've worked in Sharia law systems in the Maldives, worked in Turkey, where we actually developed a round table approach. The court was actually, there was no right of defense in the court, and that's changed dramatically. Jamaica, the highest rape rate, one of the highest rape rates in the world, specifically targeting police officers to help them to interview the victims in a more empathetic way, made an incredible difference almost overnight. I spent a year there working with the Jamaica Constabulary and in many other places. So that the victim-centered approach, even in the UK, where it is heralded by government as a success, it really isn't. It's an appalling mismatch of things that, with no one person leading, one organization leading, pulling together police, judges, prosecutors, probation, social services, NGOs, civil society, in supposedly into one place. So if the system is to change, it has to change right in the heart and in the hearts of the people that are involved with it. People like Sarika and Sunita and others who are actually involved more or less on the front line. So great to listen, and thank you very much for the opportunity. So not a question, just an observation. Thank you again for inviting me. Thank you, and well done to the panel.
Thank you, Rick. The observations are equally important as questions because they give more clarity to the concept which we are discussing. Sunita wants to say something, please.
Yeah, lovely to meet you, Richard, and let's definitely connect outside of here. And I think, you know, what Richard says is you know, something that in all my training in India I've really conveyed, that, you know, we have got a lot to learn in the UK about victim support and government responses to how we you know, support victims, and a lot of great work has been done in the UK. But as you said, Richard, there's a lot, you know, some of it is pretty limited as well. Just to add to what Richard said, you know, we have also seen some regression here, particularly because of the cuts to legal aid, which would support the most vulnerable people in society here in the UK. So we've seen a lot of pro bono clinics that have opened, particularly in universities, and we've opened our own legal firm to support the most vulnerable, because the cuts to legal aid has meant that women in particular, and families and children, are you know, limited in terms of their access to justice, particularly formal modes of justice. Also, what we've seen, certainly during COVID, and I'm sure this is something that's happened in India as well, is that a number of charities have really had their funding cut. The latest statistics were 25% of charities for young people, in particular, and children, have just had to fold. They've not been able to sustain themselves over the last 12 months. And I think these raises issues of social justice and people's access to forms of support and justice. You know, so I think there's, and this is what I like about, you know, meetings such as this and roundtables, is it's also about shared learning, and what we can learn together to advance supporting victims in particular.
And I think this is very important in understanding the perspective with which we deal with the victims and their access. I am able to see any other questions. Do we have any other questions or observations right now?
Yes, sir. I have a small
Yeah,
questions.
yes, yes, please.
So, sir, thank
Who
you
is
for
it?
being.
Karthikeyan. Yes, yes.
Yes, sir. Thank you for letting me being a part of this discussion. So, I am a systems and user experience designer. So, I'm currently designing a systemic digital platform for the Urja network and the system which Madhya Pradesh police stations or police department has been doing. And the major concern while I was designing this application and testing my prototype is that my main question is also to Sarika Sinha, ma'am. Because I had seen some of her work on ground directly into with some of the victims. So the major concern for us was when a woman is actually facing this domestic violence, gaining her trust to come forward and then be a part of this community, and also gaining her trust to give all her stories which she had got, at the same time the kind of evidences which she have had for for sorry for helping her out in the legal process. That was one of the major concerns which we had. So, any insights which Sarika Sinha ma'am has? What are the measures which they actually do for during their first engagement with the victim in order to gain their trust to come and be a part of the community which they are actually having over there?
Right. Thank you, Karthikeyanji. When a woman comes to us, the first thing I want to say is she is either brought by the police or sent to us by the hospital. In most of the incidences, what we've seen is there's some other woman who herself got some support and has some belief in and trust on Gauravi usually brings us. So that's 80% of the women who come to Gauravi. So she knows that one of them got support and she was not exploited and she was not charged any money, because lots of times they come and ask us if our lawyer is going to charge them any money, or you know how counseling rates are about 1,000 rupees per hour if you go to some of the better counselors. So that inherently brings in some trust. The second thing that we do is to not try and gather a lot of information from her. So there are lots of children who come to us, you know, to ask us initially that there's some friend who's getting exploited by her stepfather or by her father, but it's actually that person who's undergoing this. So second thing that we do is to not judge or stigmatize them, but listen and let them know these are things that can happen. Our counseling support and our legal first aid, and we do a legal first aid for everyone, so that she knows if what is more in her favor, whether it's putting domestic protection of women from domestic violence act, or it's putting an IPC 498A and dowry, or all three in conjunction, or another case of maintenance along with it. So the thing is, if you have an informed choice and if you let them know that this is not going to be a very easy battle, so many times they come and think that now I've had the guts to complain, things are just going to get sorted out. It's not going to happen like that. It doesn't. But for her to be informed and keep making this choice, and most of the time, let me tell you, 50% of the time they do want to go back to their families, because you know there's no other place institutionally that we have for women, and the kind of homes that we have, the kind of shelters that we have, they don't want to go there. They would rather get beaten up and stay at home. So two things that we do is, you know, while we're trying to counsel the husband, in which sometimes we use police and there is an in-house police person all the time, Sometimes we also use a couple of other very influential people to talk to them. So it's a myriad series of things that we use. And like I said, no one size fits all matter. So you have to design based on what the woman wants. So while one woman who's getting maritally raped and badly beaten up every day might want an FIR, another one might want to actually go back home after a couple of counseling with her husband. And we've decided not to be judgmental about it, and but go with the flow, but let her know that there are other ways that she could take up, and that this is gross injustice. So it's a little bit complicated, and that is how we work it out. So every uh, incidence of violence goes through a legal first aid. Every counseling has an aim. So while the first three might be around how to heal after a particular incident. So if you've been raped, the fact to start believing that my entire identity doesn't lie in just one part of my body. And if I've got raped, I have been humiliated, which I would have been had I been walking on the road and had I been slapped thereafter. But to take it in one's stride and not think that you've now become a dead person, or a zindalashes, as what they call them. And that takes a lot of while to learn that whatever I did, I didn't call for it. And and hence then the next three rounds of counseling are more around how do you look ahead. So what is it that you want to do? So if she wants to go back and she's been raped and the husband is supportive, so that the couple will undergo a counseling. If the husband is not, and the family is not either, and they don't want her near them, then we have to find out other places for her. Sometimes we start looking for friends. We start looking if she has enough capacity to pick up a job and be on her own. And if she has nothing, how long will we put her in a shelter home? These are things, is to not let her start believing and normalizing violence, and this whole notion of victimhood. And that has a lot of complexities. So if I were to pick up uh, cases, I would be able to tell you with each one. And if you're based out of Bhopal, I would be very happy to invite you to come down and actually talk to some of these women. But this is
Sarika ji,
yes.
Sarika ji, we actually Kartike is like interning with us, like he is doing a kind of a dissertation, his master's dissertation with SPA, and we are also like guiding him. So I'll be sending him to Gauravi and to you. And Kartike, you can have a detailed discussion with Sarika ji on this. But you have said one very important thing, Sarika ji, that the whole approach of considering the victim as a subject of derision, or as a subject of blaming is a very big issue in the law enforcement, as well as other related stakeholders, which we need to come out of. And there is a lot of attitudinal orientation around that. And the legal first aid in itself is a huge area of work which needs to be mainstreamed into justice delivery practice. So thank you very much for Kartikeya for asking this question. We will be sending you to Gauravi and to have a detailed discussion with Sarika ma'am on that.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Any other questions? We just have now 5 minutes more to conclude. So any observation, questions? I'd like to, I'd like to acknowledge that Shri Atul Shah, who is with us. Atul Shah ji is a very important community leader, community stakeholder in Gulmohar. और आपका जो सहयोग रहा है वो हमेशा बहुत ही ज्यादा अनुकरणीय रहा है. He has been so supportive. And like we could and वही चीज की जरूरत है. That is what is needed, that we have community leaders joining hands with the police persons to work in conjunction with each other. अतुल जी, आप कुछ बोलना चाह रहे हैं, please.
1 minute, sir. Please, sir.
Yes,
I want
please.
to take 1 minute. Thanks, Vineet Kapoor.
Please.
I belong to Vidisha, Madhya Pradesh. When the Vineet Kapoor was the superintendent of police, he started the Gulmohar Center at Vidisha, and I am very much pleased to inform all panelists and all presence here that the Gulmohar is still are getting the victims support, and mainly we are working to get the support, legal support to the victims, and victims are getting very benefited. I believe this type of conversations will milestone to help the victims, and I very much thanks to Vineet Kapoor ji. Your idea, every time you come with the new idea, and this will help to the victims of whole of Madhya Pradesh, not all of Madhya Pradesh, but I will say all of India. Once again, I thank you to give me the opportunity to this attend this very important conversation with the all panelists. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Atulji. Your support to Gulmohar has been exemplary, and we were able to do a lot just because people like you and Taruna Saxena, who's again present on this forum, helped us from the side of the community to integrate with the police work. Thank you so much. I would now ask Suni to ask to give her observations before we end. I'll definitely like also to invite Madam Tripti Tripathi from Women and Child Development Department. She is a very senior officer in the Women and Child Development Department. Madam Tripathi, are you available to speak? Would you like to give some observations?
Sir. Good afternoon, sir.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Please.
Sir, thank you for listening to such an important section I am attending today. Actually, we are busy in our Women's Day celebration, and so sir, actually in one-stop centers, we have 2 years experiences of in all districts of MP. We are setting the one-stop centers, and now we have about 31,000 women registered in our one-stop centers in all over MP. Also in Vidisha is also including. Sir, actually, still there are problems facing the mentality of men. We are facing still the problems that for support, for medical treatment, for their family and still we are training our staff, and their technical support is still there. So we hope, sir, we will do more and more train our staff. We will want to train our staff, and actually we are planning an SOP or a detailed guideline or for one-stop centers, and we are working on it. Sarika ji are helping in our SOP. So we want training, detailed training, joint training with police and our one-stop centers functions. So because in many districts there are much more problems between police and women's WCD staff and one-stop center functionaries, and also in medical staff. So if it can be possible, then the one-stop center will be function more and more efficiently, and we can help more victims.
Yes, ma'am. Tripathi ma'am, Anuradha Shankar, madam, who is our ADG, has just now written that we will be ready to support any such kind of training on one-stop crisis centers. And we at the Academy will be very happy to host those trainings as ADG training, Anuradha Shankar Madam has said. So we'll be able to do this. Ma'am, we will meet with you and we'll discuss a detailed plan. As Anuradha ma'am has just now written, ma'am, would you like to speak on this, Anuradha ma'am? Ma'am has written that we actually started the Gulmore project as a pilot project to mainstream best practices in one-stop crisis centers, and this could be replicated everywhere. And Sakhi Center, which is the one-stop crisis center for started by the Government of India, Ministry of Women and Child Development, can also gain a lot out of this pilot approach, where now, like we are collaborating with Sakhi Center and Gulmore are housed in the same building. They are doing the same work. So that kind of model can come up. So we already started with the support of Women and Child Development Department, and Madam Tripathi will be hosting more training in collaboration with you, as ADG training has already said. So we look forward to a detailed meeting on this with the Women and Child Development Department. Tripathi ma'am.
Thank you, sir. We are forwarding for this.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so
We are
much.
looking forward for this.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. We always got your support, and I know that we can work in conjunction for better service delivery. Thank you for that. Now we'll come to a close. But we have some time. If there is any other outstanding query, question, observation, we can just take one more. Sunita just wanted to say something.
Yeah, I mean, to sort of respond to just the last comment, and also just what Anuradha Shankar put on in the chat. Collaboration is really important, and I think sometimes there's a real need to shout out about that. You know, MP Police does some really great work in this area. I've seen that firsthand in all the trips that I've made. But equally, so do organisations like Gorvi and others. And I think it's about emphasising, as I said before, emphasising the good work and that wanting to work with community groups and collaborate on these areas, because actually it makes the work for the police a lot easier in this arena. You know, where there's good collaboration and partnership, it can really progress the agenda quite significantly. So, you know, I commend you, Vineet, and certainly to Anuradha Shankar, who is visionary in this respect. You know, she's visionary in terms of where she wants to see training and collaboration go. And it's making the most of those opportunities to advance that. So well done to MP Police in particular. You know, you're on a fantastic journey, and I really do see much more wonderful things happening.
Thank you, Sunita. You have been always an inspiring spirit and a great support. And yeah, the collaborative approach is what we need definitely, and that's why we have different stakeholders. And we are very happy that the party represented the Women and Child Development Department, which is the key department in the Government of India scheme of things to mainstream security for women and children. And that's why our collaboration with them is very important. And along with them, with the civil society and other organizations like Gorvi represents a good confluence between the civil society through ActionAid and Women and Child Development Department, Health Department and Police Department, as well as some other civil society organizations supporting them. And same is the case with the Gulmore, where we collaborated with Legal Aid and also Women Development Department through their Sakhi centers, and the police, and individuals like Atul Shah, like Taruna Saxena, and some other self-help groups of the women, which are locally representative of the community. So these all efforts do make a difference. That's the crux of the thing. And thank you very much, all participants, for sparing your time and being with us at this forum. This forum, which is JIVA, that is Justice for Inclusion and Victim Assistance, is the forum which means life itself. And it is meant to mainstream these ideas. And these roundtables would have a great impact in shaping our future work together. So thank you very much for participating in today's discussion. We'll again meet you tomorrow with another session, which is on the 11th March at between 4 to 5 p.m. And the topic is addressing vulnerabilities and exclusion through a duty-bearing state, law enforcement in protection of women, children, minorities, and the poor. So we'll discuss crucial law enforcement issues related to vulnerabilities tomorrow with Professor Arvind Tiwari, Madam Sutapa Sanyal, and Madam Avan Singhal Joshi joining us as panelists tomorrow. So we'll invite, we would expect that you attend our tomorrow session. Today's session was a great learning point for all of us. I thank Professor G.S. Bajpai for sparing his time and giving us certain insights on victim justice and the various international and national normative standards coming up on this regard. Similarly, we are very, very thankful to Professor Sunita Toor for sparing her time and joining us from UK and giving a lot of energy to the discussion around victim justice and the collaborative approach which we all must have. We are very thankful to Sarika Sinhaji, who has been working in the field on the ground with the women 24/7 and changing the lives of the people around there. With your live examples and commitment and the kind of context you have in mainstreaming victim justice, we all have learned a lot and have been inspired a lot. So thank you, all the panelists. Thank you, all the participating dignitaries and experts on this forum for sparing your time. I would now ask Aruna Mohan Rao ma'am that we'll close today's session and thank her for being there, for presiding over this roundtable, and also Anuradha Shankar ma'am. Thank you so much. Thanks. We'll meet tomorrow at 4 p.m. India time. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.